Do you think Republicans are a little hard on you because you're not white?
I would say the harder one was actually because of my religion, which is Hindu. And I'm not the whole victimhood game or anything else.
Yeah, we're not either.
Yeah, I know,
Not either.
but we'll speak the truth as we see it.
Right.
This is not an interpretation, right? This is a hard fact that a number of people in Iowa, I think my vote share in Iowa this time around would have been significantly higher than it was if I were a traditional Christian, or even like many politicians claim to be a traditional Christian. And so for me, the move would have been shorten your name, Vivek, maybe call me Vicky. Pretend to be a Christian.
Yeah.
And apparently that works on some people.
It works. It works a lot.
I don't know. I don't really know where you get where you might get a Vicky sounding Indian American politician that makes it work. But that one's okay because it actually opened up real conversations about faith. That for me, my whole goal is I'll tell you who I am and what I stand for. And if you want to vote for me, great. And if not, I'll still put my head on the pillow at night and know that I did my part. But I think that doesn't work in like a 6-month cycle.
Right.
That's a long cycle of really getting to know somebody. And for a lot of people in Iowa, I got 8%, whatever. We started at 0.0. We ended at 8. I'm proud of what we did. But for a lot of people, it was a difficult decision to say, this is a nation founded on Judeo-Christian values. I am an earnest Christian. I have a responsibility to select who the next president of our broken nation is. How can I vote for a man who does not abide by the same faith that's most important to me?
Right, yeah.
And I think a lot of people grew comfortable with that, thinking through, okay, but I'm not voting for a pastor. I'm voting for a president. I understand. And I'm a student of history. One of the things that we shared, which takes a lot of people by surprise, is Thomas Jefferson was not a traditional Christian, actually. And the left likes to cancel a lot of his legacy because he was a slaveholder. But we can't cancel or reinvent our own history either.
Right.
He was a deist. And so we ended up having deep conversations in rooms like this with evangelical Christians in Northwest Iowa who would have never imagined themselves voting for somebody who was a Hindu. I still believe in one true God. I believe he put us here for a purpose. Same values, but a different faith. And I think some beautiful things happened as a consequence of that, too. And so I think it was just a matter of time, in 6 months.
I think
I wasn't
what really
going to be able to convince that more people.
Yeah, I think what really hurts you is how Trump is being persecuted. If he wasn't being persecuted at the length he's being persecuted, I think you'd have did a lot better in the polls. But I don't really trust those polls. How's Nikki Haley polling better than you?
Yeah, it ends up being the influence of these super PACs, actually. I mean, the inner part of us, most people still behave like sheep.
Yeah.
Maybe each of us does on a given day too. There's a part of inside of each of us who's a lion and a part of inside of each of us who's a sheep. And I think what happens is your natural tendency is to still behave like the sheep. And so if you have a bunch of donors buying up mass numbers of just television ads, even if you think, those television ads bore me, but you're just seeing the same thing and it's 30 seconds and it's a carbon copy and you've been used for 25 years for consuming that, you end up behaving like somebody who's actually acting like an automaton, actually acting like the robot. And so it turns out of the subset of people who actually ever came to an event, I mean, that's like maybe 1% of the total voting population ever actually comes to a detailed political event, understands, engages in conversation, or even listens to a podcast amongst the Republican primary electorate that goes deep to spend an hour or two understanding who somebody is. That's a totally different race. But the problem is that's a tiny fraction of the total where most people still are consuming, most Republican primary voters are older. They're consuming, they're not going to see this. A lot of people are going to see what we're talking about, I'm sure. Right. But it's as a percentage of the Republican primary electorate is actually still a pretty small portion who are just by creatures of being habit are getting what they are from cable news, and the 30-second ads on cable news make a big difference.
Yeah.
And then I think if you have an entire establishment, not just amongst the donors buying the ads, but even amongst that media itself, the very media from whom they're buying those ads, deciding they're going to crown one person as the favorite. Initially, it was Ron DeSantis, and it worked. And then as soon as they drop him like he's hot, boom, he's gone. But the next puppet still is able to be trotted up to just pick up where he left off. Right. And so, I'm not complaining about that. It's just a fact of how the game works, and it's why I'm running.
I'm kind of disappointed.
I'm going to take this off, actually. I'm getting warm.
Yeah, it's getting hot. Yeah, I'm kind of disappointed on how conservatives see the candidates. Like some of the criticisms I heard about you, I didn't hear about Nikki Haley. It's like they were being tougher and harder on you. And I was like, I didn't really get it. And they keep, every time I spoke to someone, they always compare you to Obama. And you sound nothing like Obama.
Yeah, I really don't. If you listen to the content of what what we're saying.
You're both brown.
Yeah, and, you know, maybe the depth of voice sounds similar or whatever, but that's about it.
You sound nothing.
I don't think so.
You sound nothing like that Negro. Nothing.
He's not somebody who I share a lot with. I would say. We would butt heads. I've never really met the guy, but if I did, I'm sure we'd have a lot to argue over. But I'm not. Look, there's a lot of people who go through a process like this and, you know, don't get the result they want and then whine about all the reasons why. And I'm just not one of these people.